I believe Our Lady thinks that your free will is the second greatest gift that God's ever given you. The first one being His own Son. Okay? But when He gave you free will, okay, He gave it to you with no strings attached. Okay? But He wants to know if you will choose on your own to give it back to Him. You know, if you give your free will, cede your free will to God's will, you know, that's love. And that's the love that He's asking for out of His children. Okay? And if you know what was to be happening ahead of time, then your free will isn't part of the equation anymore. You're not doing it out of an act of love for God and God's will be done. You're doing it because you feel this is something that has been, you know, is part of the future and you must do it. You know, but that's not how I found it to be. Our Lady has never told me to do anything. Never once has she ever told me to do anything. She's always asked me. And she's always said, please. And when Our Lady says please, it's probably one of the most humbling things you could ever experience.
You had an encounter with her.
Yes, on the hill. That was July 14th, 2001. And she let me ask any question I wanted. And she says, you deserve some answers. She said, thank you for responding to our call. And, you know, thank you for, you know, what it is you're doing. She says, but you deserve some answers to things. So I asked questions. You know, I said, you know, how come, you know, we tried, wanted kids, you know, couldn't have any kids. She says, if you'd had children, you wouldn't have been able to say yes to this. And I understand there's no way they could have ever asked anyone with a wife and children those responsibilities to do this because it is just way too consuming. There was just no way that I could have done both. And they understood that. But I think it also had to be a lay person had to do this because I think the church was not going to sit there and respond like I did. And I think it's not anything that, you know, Larry, you know, did the right thing or anything. Larry did what he felt he needed to do. Okay, because I was asked to do something, and it was the only way that made me feel right was to say yes. Because something was going on, and little signs were along the way, but they all added up. I thought I was being asked to do something. And I tried talking to my own parish priest about it. I said, have you ever been talked to or had anyone that's had voices? And he's like, oh, you know, he didn't want to talk to me about it either, but he says, you know, stress can manifest itself in many different ways. You know, and I said, well, I'm not stressed. I said, you know, I got money in the bank, I got a great job, everything's great. You know, I'm not under stress. He says, oh, why do you think God would want you to do something when He's got so many people already in collars and accepting the vocations who are more than willing to do it? And I said, well, they already had you, maybe they needed me. Well, that kind of ticked them off, I think, a little bit. I think he thought I was being smart. But I was just looking for answers. And I said, well, you know, why me? But maybe they needed something that I'm capable of doing that, you know, people in their profession and vocation wouldn't do or couldn't do. And this place here, as anyone who's been with me the last 9 years can attest, you know, it takes somebody with a lot of different talents or perspectives to be able to take it all in and then try to preserve it, not make it into some sort of crazy cartoon of a monster that doesn't honor Our Lady's presence here. And I think it needed someone who was willing to just kind of give up to let Our Lady have the floor, so to speak. And you know, not that anyone here couldn't have done it too, but I don't have an answer for that, and you know, maybe it'll come out in time. But yeah.
Can you tell how Mary came to you?
Was it 2001?
Yeah.
Well, that was kind of a bad day. And this is another one of these things where, you know, nothing was going right, and all week long. This was a Saturday, and we were supposed to have about 80, you know, people here, families just like yourselves, other kids. And they were going to come in for a work weekend. We were going to work all day Saturday, have Mass, everything, and they were all going to stay over. And then for Sunday, we were going to work again, and they're all going to go home. And we're going to get a bunch of rooms painted and blah, blah, blah. So I went out and I bought all these paintbrushes and equipment, and I had people here to separate people into work groups so we could get a lot done and have, you know, a good time. And even up till Wednesday that week, I was getting people calling and reserving rooms for them and their children. And okay, remember, you know, we'll be there, so we had to make sure we had enough food. So I'd gone out and bought all this food. Okay, we were ready to prep it all up because I had 80 people coming. Okay, 9 o'clock Saturday morning, nobody shows up.
Oh.
10 o'clock, nobody shows. Nobody calls. I'm calling people, what's going on? No one's answering their phones. 12 noon, nobody calls.
Wow.
Nobody shows. Out of all these people, I must have had 15 to 20 families involved. Nobody called. Nobody came.
That's weird.
My wife comes to me and she says, this is how it's going to be. Everyone's always going to tell you they're going to help, but then they're going to leave you alone. It's up to you. You're on your own. And she was really upset with them, but also with me at this time. And she says, what are you going to do? And I said, well, you know, I said, they weren't asked to do this. And I said, I don't hold any of them responsible. I said I would do it. And I said, so if I have to do it, room by room, brick by brick, I said, I'm going to do everything I can. I'll do it. I said, they weren't asked to do it. I said, so I'm not going to sit there and blame anybody else, or I understand how passion runs with people. And so I just said, well, you know, it's not their job, I guess. And so she says, what are you going to do? I said, well, I got all this food in here. I got to go and start cooking. So I had like 150 to 200 pounds of hamburger. I had to make into sloppy joes. And so if you ever cooked up that much, you know, sloppy joe, that's a lot. I got both hands going with spatulas. I'm making up sloppy joes. And then I had another group coming in the next week, so I made all the sloppy joe up, put it in the freezer, and then I had to make like 2,000 cookies. You like the cookies? They were just like that. 2,000 cookies. And so my wife was here, and I had her mother was here, and I had another friend of mine who had driven up from Louisville, Kentucky, come up and help organize these people into these work parties. And so it's just the four of us back there. So I didn't say a word the rest of the day, because anything I'd say was just going to get me in trouble. And I think the guys know exactly what I'm talking about. You feeling me? You feeling me? Okay, you got it. All right. Anyway, so I just shut up and I cooked. And I'm making dough and I'm putting it out there, not saying a word, going back, making more dough. Anyway, we got these big mixing bowls back there, and I probably had to do about 10 of those to make up all these cookies.
Wow.
And we went through a lot of butter, a lot of eggs, and I just said nothing. You know, because my wife was ready to jump on me. So anyway, told you so, told you so. Just every 8 minutes, take the cookies out. But anyway, we had the whole place all locked up. It was just the four of us were back there working in the kitchen. And about 5:30, a woman comes in through the back door of the kitchen. It was the only door we had unlocked. And she found it. She comes in, and just tears streaming down her face. And before she could say a word, I'm looking at this woman, and in my mind's eye, I see one of these grottos like they have in the backyard where you take a bathtub and you set it on end. You got the Blessed Mother in there called bathtub virgins. Well, it was a grotto, but anyway. And I see one of these, and there's a statue in there of Our Lady. I think it's Our Lady of Grace with her hands out like this. She's looking at me and she says, feed them and take them to the hill. So I look at this lady, and she's just got streams of tears coming down. And she says what we hear so often from people when they come in here, says, forgive me, I have no idea why I'm here. But she says, forgive us, we have no idea why we're here. And I said, how many there are you? And she says, well, there's 14 of us. We're all out in the Winnebago. She says, I've got Archbishop Leibold's nephew, Paul Leibold, is out there. He drove us all up from Cincinnati. And I said, and you don't know why you're here? She says, we have no idea why we're here. Okay. So I said, well, come on in, it's time for dinner. And I had all these potato chips and everything for these other 80 people. I figured 14 can enjoy it. She said, no. I said, listen to your mother, come on in. So we brought her on here, we had all the kids, and they were